Thanks for taking the time to learn more about 8094 FlexRoad, an INDOT project to improve Indiana's busiest interstate corridor.
I'm Toby Randolph. I'm the project manager for the FlexRoad project, and I'm with Parsons, who is the design lead for the project.
And I'm Mindy Peterson, also with Parsons. I'm the public involvement director, and we lead communications for the project. We held 2 public hearings in July, one in Indiana and one in Illinois. If you weren't able to join us, this short presentation and video will give you a chance to get up to date on this INDOT project. The comment period associated with the environmental document is open through Friday, August 8th. There are a lot of ways to share your feedback, including online at indianaflexroad.com, by phone to 855-INDOT4U, or at one of the 8 community locations with materials and comment forms. We'll talk in more detail about how you can share your input later in this video. We'll start out with an overview of the project, and then we'll talk about something called Transportation Systems Management and Operations Strategies, or TSMO for short. If you're not sure what that means, we'll let you know. Toby will talk through all of the anticipated improvements and walk you through what to expect. And we're going to talk a little bit about how TSMO strategies can make a difference in your commute. We'll wrap up by making sure that you know how to share any comments and to follow our progress. Let's start with that project overview and a closer look at FlexRoad. When talking about FlexRoad, it's always important to get a sense of the project area. This project is along the I-80, I-94 corridor, also known as the Borman Expressway. This is a very busy corridor. In fact, it's the busiest in Indiana. The project corridor extends over 14 miles from the I-65 interchange in Lake County, Indiana, to the Illinois 394 interchange in Cook County. This is a snapshot of the Borman. It's a pretty typical one with lots of vehicles and a lot of trucks. The Borman was built in the 1950s. Over the years, the highway has been widened. The Borman is 4 to 5 lanes wide, and we see residential and commercial development right up against the highway. The corridor has a lot of truck traffic. About 25 to 30% of the traffic on this very busy corridor is truck traffic. Also, you see a lot of traffic in general. The Borman carries around 160,000 vehicles every day, the highest of any highway in the state of Indiana. In terms of miles traveled, Indiana interstates have the highest percentage of truck miles in the nation. As you know, all of this traffic can lead to congestion and frustration. Because of the amount of development with homes and businesses so close to the interstate, there are limits to the solutions that are reasonable and feasible to address these traffic concerns. The purpose and need is important. Basically, it's the why for a project. For FlexRoad, we have 2 primary needs: recurring congestion and safety, with high crash rates along the corridor. The purpose of the project is to identify the improvements that will increase the efficiency of the corridor by reducing travel times, increasing travel time reliability, and improving safety by reducing crashes. Those TSMO strategies we mentioned maximize the safety and efficiency of the existing system. The improvements that have been identified include combining several TSMO strategies, along with improvements at the Broadway Avenue interchange and the I-65 South exit. Construction is expected to begin in 2026 and last 3 years. Before I turn things over to Toby to talk in depth about improvements, let's take a look at the environmental impacts of the project. Part of the work we do is to identify all impacts associated with the project. You'll see them outlined in detail in the environmental document. Impacts are fairly minimal with FlexRoad, with less than half an acre of permanent right-of-way and less than 2 acres of permanent wetland impacts in Indiana. You can read about mitigation in the environmental document, which is posted on the FlexRoad project website. Toby will talk more about improvements coming to the corridor.
Thanks, Mindy. There are quite a few improvements planned for the corridor, from TSMO strategies and added capacity at the I-65 South exit to interchange improvements at Broadway Avenue. Let's start with TSMO, which Mindy has already hit on. We have many strategies that we'll be combining and using throughout the corridor. Ramp metering controls vehicles entering the roadway to match conditions and capacity. This leads to improved merging and fewer crashes. Variable speed limits are exactly what they sound like. Speed limits are adjusted based on real-time conditions like crashes, weather conditions, and work zones. Dynamic lane control involves opening or closing lanes based on conditions. You'll see those red X's overhead to indicate a closed lane or a green arrow to let you know a lane is open. Dynamic shoulder lanes are based on maximizing what you have, which we've talked about. Inside shoulders can be used during peak congestion to add capacity. Outside shoulders can be used by emergency vehicles to respond to and clear incidences. Event management strategies include things like incentives for tow truck companies to quickly clear crashes or broken down vehicles, or increasing the Hoosier Helper staff availability. Improved signage and queue warnings let drivers know what to expect ahead, like if they encounter congestion or if there's a crash along the route. We'll combine all these TSMO strategies along with interchange improvements at Broadway Avenue and the I-65 South exit to improve mobility and safety along the corridor. We'll talk in detail a bit about improvements coming to Broadway Avenue interchange and the I-65 South exit. Let's talk about gantries in the corridor. Gantries include digital overhead signs that keep drivers informed. Those gantries are used to implement many of the TSMO strategies we've discussed. You see the examples on your screen with dynamic shoulders, dynamic lane control, variable speed limits, and queue warning. These large digital signs will provide lots of information at a glance. They'll be placed about every half mile along the corridor and share key information with drivers. Drivers will see real-time updates that will help to improve traffic flow and safety. This is another glance at gantries, with a closer look at what to expect with dynamic lane control. Lanes are open or closed based on conditions, and drivers will see that information with messages overhead. In this example, you see the lanes that are closed because they are blocked ahead, and you see the lanes in use, including that shoulder lane. In addition to the TSMO strategies, there's going to be improvements at the Broadway and I-65 interchanges. This graphic highlights improvements. This busy section along the east side of the Borman is heavily traveled and prone to crashes. Let's take a look at improvements coming to the Broadway Avenue interchange. In addition to new gantries and signage in the westbound and eastbound lanes, we're modifying the existing signal to control traffic entering and exiting the Borman and through traffic along Broadway Avenue. The existing northbound ramp along Broadway will also be removed, and traffic will enter along the existing loop ramp, creating additional space to safely merge. The additional lane between Grant and Broadway continues as a fifth lane, and reconfigured striping will provide 3 lanes that continue to the I-65 South exit without changing lanes. These improvements will reduce weaving and merging for drivers exiting and entering the Borman, improving safety and traffic flow. Now let's take a look at improvements at the I-65 South exit. An added option lane will allow drivers to continue along I-80, I-94, or take I-65 South. 3 lanes will continue through the I-65 South exit, meaning there's less merging and weaving between lanes, reducing crashes. We're also adding a dynamic shoulder lane that will provide added capacity through the interchange during peak travel times or incidents. Improved fiber optics are also part of the project. There's a lot of digital signage that is part of FlexRoad. The existing fiber optic cable will be replaced with updated cable on both sides of the corridor to support the new digital signs. The improved fiber optics also provide redundancy and ensure the system remains functioning in the event of an issue with a single cable. Construction on the fiber optic improvements is expected to begin in the fall of 2025 and be complete in summer of 2026. There will be minimal impacts to traffic as these improvements are made. We know you care about how your commute is going to be affected by this construction. We work hard to develop a plan to best maintain traffic in the area during construction. We've talked about the fiber optics improvements. Work on the FlexRoad improvements is expected to begin in the spring of 2026 and last 3 years. When we have the fiber optic work underway later this year and next year, we expect some shoulder closures and short-term lane restrictions. 4 lanes of I-80, I-94 will be open in both directions most of the time. We'll have a minimum of 3 lanes open in both directions during overnight work. There will be very short-term rolling closures to install the overhead signage. We'll have 2 lanes of traffic from I-80, I-94 eastbound able to exit to 65 south at all times. We will have some ramp closures. Short-term ramp closures are expected to last up to 2 weeks. The I-80, I-94 East to Broadway exit ramp is expected to close for up to 60 days when improvements happen at that interchange. We expect only short-term closures on adjacent local roads. Now Mindy will talk further about the anticipated TSMO strategies.
Thanks, Toby. Let's take a closer look at the TSMO strategies that are going to make these improvements possible. As mentioned, TSMO is short for Transportation Systems Management and Operations. Basically, we're talking about strategies that will be used to improve how the corridor operates. These are options that will be combined and used throughout the corridor, options that should really make a difference for your commute. These photos give you a flavor of those TSMO strategies, things like dynamic lanes, variable speed limits, and improved signage. We have an existing footprint here on a very busy corridor. We are looking at what's possible within that footprint. There are spots nearby where you may have encountered TSMO strategies, like the Illinois Tollway, the Indiana Toll Road, US 23 in Michigan, ramp metering in Chicago, and ramp metering and variable speed limits in Indianapolis. We've discussed TSMO, and we're going to do a little more talking TSMO and really look at how these strategies are making a difference where they are already in use. It's important to understand how and why these strategies work. Real-life examples can be the most helpful to see. Ramp metering is making a real difference in Minnesota, where it's in place on over 210 miles of freeway in the Twin Cities. State officials say 2.6 million hours are saved by avoiding delays. When traffic is flowing better, you see several advantages, including lower emissions and gas savings. There are more examples here. The drivers in South Dakota say when they know what to expect, they change their behavior, their travel times, or their routes, and that's saving them time and leaving them more prepared. Weekend crashes were reduced in Washington with variable speed limits and dynamic lane control. On the weekends, you may have more drivers who are not as familiar with the area. It really makes a difference when they are informed and know what to expect. Along US 23 in Michigan, TSMO strategies have improved travel times by 45%. These figures help reinforce what TSMO strategies do. They improve safety, reliability, and efficiency. Finally, we're going to wrap up with how to follow the progress of FlexRoad. We've talked about what to expect. The timeline is shown here. Holding these public hearings and formal comment period are an important milestone. Comments received will be responded to in the final environmental document, expected late this year in 2025. That's where you will see responses to comments received during the comment period. Fiber optic work is expected to begin in the fall, and FlexRoad construction is expected to begin in spring 2026 and last 3 years. Sharing your comments is easy. Share your feedback directly at indianaflexroad.com. You can also call INDOT customer service at 855-INDOT for you. When you call, be sure to mention the FlexRoad project. As we touched on earlier, we have copies of the environmental document at 8 locations along the corridor, along with handouts and comment forms. You can complete a comment form and drop it in the box there or upload it online. Comments will be accepted through Friday, August 8th, and comments received during this period will be addressed in that final environmental document. We want to make it easy for you to stay in touch and follow progress for the FlexRoad project. You can find much more information on the project website, indianaflexroad.com. There you'll find information about TSMO strategies, the improvements that Toby talked about, FAQs, and much more. When you're on the website, it's very quick and easy to sign up for project updates, so you will always be informed. And of course, you can follow us on Facebook and X for FlexRoad updates. Thanks for taking the time to learn more about 8094 FlexRoad.